who are compatible with his new fascist policies and eliminate anyone who opposes his fascism, and then call them a new, let us say, minority-friendly police force, a federal police force that will be friendly and conform with all federal guidelines on fairness.
Yep. Well, I actually have a friend who was at a law enforcement, because we have a lot of law enforcement in the family. He was at a law enforcement meeting, and they were discussing one of the things that came down. Like, they were supposed to go to their other police officers and say, what would you do if we were supposed to round up citizens? And they said what was surprising was about half of them said we wouldn't do it, we wouldn't partake in it. And the other half, they said mainly it was the younger ones, the under 30s, were like, okay, whatever we have to do, we'll do. And
yeah, I got it. I got it very clearly. Next, Goring purged the Berlin Police Department of politically unreliable cops and had 50,000 stormtroopers sworn in as special police auxiliaries. That's sort of what we're talking about. If Obama does that, if Obama deputizes these gangs or these community organizers, you'll know exactly that what I was saying to you today has great validity. Let's leave it at that. I'm not running for office. It's that simple. 855-407-282. What else is in the news? Let's see. Iran. You want to talk about Iran? I'm not interested in those crazy ragheads. Iran's Ayatollah, nuke inspectors will not have access to military sites, nor are scientists. You expected something different from Obama's friends in Shia Iran? Isn't this what he wanted? He wanted a secret deal with Iran. And when Congress said, wait a minute, we're Congress, we have a right to see the deal, he said, drop dead. You can't interfere with my deal. And Lurch, his Secretary of State, the most dangerous Secretary of State in history, and that's saying a lot when you consider that we had Madeleine Halfbright, perhaps the worst human being that I've ever seen in the Secretary of State's position, who, Lurch said, that's right, the president has a right to pass a law, an agreement with Iran without any interference from Congress. So we have a dictatorship in the making. We all warned you that Iran would go ahead with their nuclear weapon on a fast track once he gave this fast track to them. And Iran today said nuke inspectors will not have access to military sites, nor our scientists. And the International Atomic Energy Agency will not be allowed to inspect the facilities. So Obama, in other words, is working hand in glove with the ragheads in Iran to build a nuclear weapon, not only to wipe Israel off the map, but possibly to wipe off great Satan, which is us. Think about it, my friends. One day you'll wake up and realize that what I'm about to say is true. A nuclear weapon does not discriminate between a progressive and a conservative. Okay, my friends.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth with gold and silver. Call 800-BUICOIN.
We've seen in places like Baltimore and Ferguson and New York. And it has many causes, from a basic lack of opportunity to some groups feeling unfairly targeted by their police forces.
Yeah,
and that means there's no single solution.
No, there is.
Have to be a lot of different solutions and different.
Yeah, law and order is the solution, liar. Law and order. That's the solution. Something you don't know. Here's the question. Will Obama be remembered as the first black president or the first president of the blacks? Because every day in every way I hear him segmenting this country and representing only one population in this country. There seems to be a war against the European American population in this nation, in case you don't know it. Whether it's on the universities, where the vermin talk about white privilege as though it's real and intimidate your children and make them hate themselves. Or it's in the streets with him agitating mobs. Or Hillary agitating La Raza and illegal aliens. Who speaks for the white people? May I ask that question? May I humbly ask you, who speaks for the European Americans who are the majority of this country? Just who speaks for them?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
As men and women in uniform, you know that it can be just as important, if not more important, to prevent threats before they can cause catastrophic harm. And the only way the world is going to prevent the worst effects of climate change is to slow down the warming of the planet. Some warming is now inevitable, but there comes a point when the worst effects will be irreversible and time is running out.
As the Grand Illusionist, the worst commander-in-chief imaginable. If you hired a 9-year-old child with a toy gun to be the commander-in-chief, he couldn't do a worse job than the Grand Illusionist is doing, in my opinion. Here we have ISIS taking over one major city after another, and this clown is talking about climate change posing a threat to national security. Only in America could it get away with it, because we no longer have a fourth estate. We have a fifth column with a single party of left-wing demagogues running everything from top to bottom. Welcome to the show, hour number 2. Hour number 1 I spent explaining to you in some detail what went on in Germany in the 1930s on the birth of the Gestapo under Adolf Hitler, how it was done step by step, stage by stage. And I compared it to what he's doing to our police in this country, step by step, day by day, city by city. I'm not going to repeat myself. It'll be up on the, I suppose it'll be webcast, however they do this, podcast on various and sundry websites before the end of the day. And I suggest you listen to it and share it with people. You're very lucky that you have me on the radio. I rarely blow my own horn. People think I'm very egotistical and I do too much of it, but you actually don't know I don't do much of it at all. The thing is that were it not for the quirks of the socialist government that you're living in, you wouldn't even be hearing me. I would have been a college professor of ethnobotany and never heard from, except in scholarly circles. But because they cauterized me through the fascism of liberalism and drove me away from the universities, I come before you fully developed and fully educated in so many areas. And as a result, I see the truth and I don't wait. Now, it has been written that God sees the truth but waits. Thomas Mann wrote that in one of his short stories. I was very impressed with it. And it was about the nihilism of Germany after World War I, before the Nazis arose, during the liberal Weimar Republic. The country was out of control. Liberalism had destroyed the social order. Young gangs were roving the streets of Germany, doing what they're doing today in America. And it was fascism that came along because the people were demanding law and order. And now we have the Grand Illusionist that we're dealing with. And you know what's hard for me to believe is that every day he gets worse. It's not as though, see, this is a pathology here we're dealing with. We're actually dealing with a very ill man. He is so demonically ill that he doesn't even realize what, does he realize what he's doing? I ask myself every day. How can a man get up every day and while looking at himself in the, you get up, wash your face, go to the bathroom, you look at yourself in the mirror, you comb your hair, brush your teeth, whatever. Does he say to himself, what can I do to destroy white America today? How can I destroy the power structure every day? How can I weaken this country even further? Is that what he's doing? Because there's no other explanation for his activities. It's as though a man wakes up every day and says, how can I weaken the European-American dominance of this country? How can I make this country less racist, which is a code word for weakening white America? I'm sorry, you want a conversation on race? Didn't Eric Holder say we're cowards? Didn't Eric Holder say that we're too cowardly to have a discussion on race? Well, let's have a discussion on race. He wants us to talk about it. I am talking about it. I am so sick and tired of hearing how evil white men are. I am so sick and tired of hearing how oppressed the black people are. I am so sick and tired of hearing how great every Hispanic is that I want to have a conversation on race. So that's what we're doing. We're having a conversation on race. Since Eric Holder said that we're all cowards on it. White men are evil, Hispanics are all Einsteins, and black men are all oppressed. That's the narrative every day. And your poor daughter goes to college. This poor child you gave birth to has to go and listen to these communist cockamamie lunatics who tell her she has white privilege. She could have multiple sclerosis and come from a poor home. They'll tell her if she's European American, she has white privilege. That's what your daughter has to put up with, this massive Soviet-style propaganda under this grand illusionist. So that's the opening to hour number 2. What do you want me to talk about? You want me to talk about, I have other subjects, I can do them. I can shift gears. So I'll tell you what I will do is I'll shift gears. I'll shift gears because I realize histrionics only work up to a point. And I looked into something to do with radio the other day that's very interesting. The business of radio is an interesting business. It lives on ratings. It lives and falls on ratings. And we can't give you the exact numbers. We're not allowed to. But I look at a few markets to see how I'm doing. I've had ups and downs, but for a while now, my show, I look at a major market like New York City on WABC, of the 250 stations. How am I doing compared to other day part shows? And there was a dip last month, but I'm still number 1 in Cume. So in other words, although the talk format went down, I still maintain my dominance. So what does that tell me? It tells me I'm doing the right thing. My audience is still listening to me. That's all I know. There's nothing else I can do. My core audience still listens to me because they like Michael Savage. They like my mind. They like my delivery. They like my passion. And I'll keep doing it. I'm not going to suddenly become what I'm not. Others have to decide whether what they're selling is being purchased or not. And you'll have to decide whether what they're selling is worth buying. That's, it's a long day here. It's not my job to kill others in the business. I don't have to defeat others in order for me to survive. Do you understand that? People don't understand that. Some talk shows think that they have to dominate everybody else in order to survive in their 3 hours. I understand through wisdom that there's an awful long day, and you need an audience all day long, and they need an audience all day long. So all I care about is my 3 hours. And make believe I'm a truck driver. On the back of my truck, it's 1-800, how's my driving? I think my driving's pretty good. All I know is that there are days I wake up. I've had good ones, by the way, this week. It's been a very good week for me, despite some physical problems, emotional problems, psychological problems, philosophical problems, issues that every man has to deal with every day. What you have to do is get up. You have to get yourself together, focus everything, and do the show. And not worry about what came before it, and not worry about what comes after it. Don't worry about the black hole of life that follows radio. These 3 hours, I float like a butterfly, or I soar like an eagle. I fly like an eagle for 3 hours. Some days I soar higher than others, and I think I'm doing a fine job for you today. And I hope you're enjoying it. And most of you who listen to me on a daily basis for many, many years can tell by my voice how I'm feeling. And I will say that many of you know that I'm feeling quite good right now. Here's an email I got. It's from Shomer Yisrael. Dear Dr. Savage, firstly, I must thank you for keeping me company on my way home from work the past 15 years and wish you many more years on the radio with even more success. Secondly, I have to say that there were many times I wished to myself that if only I could be on the phone with you, how I would say something about the subject, but that never happened because the lines were so busy. With regards to your questions on how to save America, we all know only God can help us, but since you asked, I will give you my answers. And he gives me the answers to 13 questions, which I'm not going to read you because it would probably stop the show in its tracks. And you can look at the questions on michaelsavage.com and send your answers. It's a small contest, but an important one, I think. Questions for Savage Nation listeners. And I'm going to include the best answers in a book that's coming out next October. Yes, I'm always writing. Never forget one thing about Michael Savage. I began as a writer. And Ecclesiastes, one of the great books of the Old Testament, says, of the making of many books there is no end. It's that simple. That's what I do. I was once in a barber chair when I used to go to barbers. I don't go to barbers anymore. Instead, I just got a ponytail. And yeah, actually, I'm growing a ponytail now. I decided I'm going to be one of those ponytail older guys. I look good, though. They don't look good with them. Other older guys look terrible with ponytails. I look good with one. we all think we look good. But, you got to keep up your act. So I like the way I look. So I don't go to barbers anymore, except to get a little trim. So I was once sitting in a barber chair in San Francisco. Nice guy. I haven't gone there in a while. And I said, I'm exhausted. I don't want to write it. This is right after abuse of power. I'm talking 5 years ago. I said, I don't think I can write another